This video was brought to you by our backers on Patreon, including Joshua A. Thanks, Josh. Those supporters not only help us make more content for everyone, but this month they'll also get access to a bunch of exclusive trial live streams. So sign up now by clicking the link in the description. With the Partygate scandal rumbling on and the Sue Gray report published on Tuesday, something managed to slip through the gap. A government report entitled The Benefits of Brexit: How the UK is taking advantage of leaving the EU. And, well, it's a biggie, sitting at over 100 pages long. The issue being, though, that some people have questioned its content. So in this video, we'll break down the report and see whether the government's benefits of Brexit really stack up. So, as I mentioned, this report is long, and as such, we've selected just some of the more interesting parts. Therefore, this obviously isn't going to be a comprehensive analysis, but the whole report is linked below if you want to check it out. Anyway, the report begins with some claims about the government's achievements thus far. So let's start by running through some of the key things they think they've achieved post-Brexit. Firstly, the government highlights how it's ended free movement and taken back control of our borders. Now, this is true. Since Brexit, the UK has replaced the EU's freedom of movement with a new points-based immigration system. We should caveat that, because so far, taking back control hasn't exactly gone brilliantly. After all, in June 2021, the Road Haulage Association wrote to the Prime Minister to express concerns a shortage of about 100,000 drivers, in part due to the 16,000 fewer EU national HGV drivers being employed in the UK. In response, the government loosened the rules for EU HGV drivers, which the Road Haulage Association somewhat ironically described as uncontrolled immigration for drivers. And we're already seeing similar things happening in other industries, especially the NHS. Anyway, according to the report, Brexit has also restored democratic control over our lawmaking, as well as restored the Supreme Court as the final arbiter of UK law. Again, both of these facts are true-ish. While the UK is no longer closely overseen by the ECJ, there are some areas where the ECJ does continue to have supremacy, most notably when it comes to citizens' rights under the Withdrawal Agreement and the Northern Ireland Protocol. Next on the achievement list is fisheries. The report claims that thanks to Brexit and the UK's Fisheries Act, UK fishermen now have larger fishing quotas and new opportunities. And they're right, UK fishing quotas are indeed larger, although it's worth saying that for all the focus that's been put on this issue during the Brexit debate, fishing represents just 0.1% of UK GDP. The report also claims that the UK can finally have its own blue passports.
I mean, you are entitled to a beautiful new blue passport.
But unfortunately, this isn't quite true, and that's because the EU never actually mandated burgundy passports. Yes, it produced a standard format that member states could adapt if they wished to, but there was nothing stopping member states from rejecting the design or reverting back to what they had before. The Croatian passport, for instance, remains blue. The report also claims that the government is now investing £57 billion more into the NHS. While this might technically be true, it's got nothing to do with Brexit, and we've actually already explained these claims in a dedicated video. But summarised, while the NHS's funding has increased since leaving the EU, there was nothing stopping the UK from beefing up NHS spending while still within the Union. And it's certainly not true that extra NHS money is being funded by any sort of Brexit dividend. Instead, it's mostly being funded by a tax rise in the form of the new health and social care levy. The government report then goes on to highlight the success of delivering 8 free ports in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, which they say allows for bespoke tax arrangements. But again, this isn't really related to Brexit. The UK could have created free ports as a member of the EU. Indeed, the UK hosted 7 free ports as an EU member state between 1984 and 2012, when it decided not to renew the legislation that governed them. So anyway, you get the point. Some of the so-called Brexit benefits are pretty questionable. But let's move on to the second part of the report: how the government plans on reforming their post-Brexit regulatory system. Now, if we're being completely honest, this section is remarkably vague, especially for an official government report. It's full of boostery language, like supercharge UK industry, embracing new technology, and recognising what works. But the only actual specific figure in the section is that the government plans to save businesses £1 billion by cutting EU red tape. But there's no more detail than that, not even what red tape is going to be cut. We should stress that this isn't us taking partisan shots at the government. There just really isn't any detail about how they're actually going to cut costs, which is remarkable considering that the report is 100 pages long. Anyway, let's move on to the third and final part of the report, future opportunities. According to the report, Brexit has given the UK a world of future opportunities. And this third section sets out 5 vision statements for the future. Data, science and technology, business and industry, infrastructure and levelling up, climate, the environment and agriculture, and global Britain. So let's start with data, science and technology. We're told that the government wants to make the UK a science superpower by 2030 and a global hub for innovation by 2035. However, we only actually get 2 pieces of detail about how this will be achieved. Public investment on research and development will apparently rise to 20 billion by 2025, up from 15 billion today, and the UK will establish the Advanced Research and Innovation Agency, or ARIA, which the government is committed to spending £800 million on over the next 5 years. For business and industry, the government wants to cement the UK's status as an international financial services hub by including mutual recognition provisions in its new trade deals to allow UK bankers and lawyers to expand to foreign markets. The government also wants to remove the EU's Charter of Fundamental Rights from broadcasting law, which they claim has a chilling effect on free speech. And perhaps most importantly, they want to support the production of English sparkling wine. For infrastructure and levelling up, the government wants to invest in the UK's electric charging infrastructure, as well as rail connectivity, free ports and nuclear power via the Nuclear Energy Financing Bill. It's worth saying that being in the EU didn't really prevent the UK from doing any of these things, but there you go. For climate, the environment and agriculture, the main thing is reaching net zero by 2050. Again, there's not much here that couldn't have been done while the UK was still in the Union. For example, the UK's new emission trading scheme is essentially a direct copy of the EU's emission trading scheme. But there is some Brexit-related stuff in there, like the government's plan to reform EU laws on plastic waste export and scrap the EU's Common Agricultural Policy, which it describes as a disaster for farmers, farming and the environment. Last of all, the Global Britain vision statement essentially involves strengthening border controls, implementing the UK's own immigration regime, and signing more trade deals. To be fair to the government here, these are things that, for the most part, couldn't have been achieved while the UK was in the EU. So that's the government's Benefits of Brexit report. As a last thing, we should note that this report was remarkably vague, especially for an official government document. It was over 100 pages long, and it said, well, almost nothing. And the occasional bit of detail there was usually a disguised reference to a recycle policy. And most of it was full of half-truths or nebulous boostery nonsense about supercharging global Britain or EU red tape. This isn't a party political point. We'd say this whoever was in power. It's just that the most remarkable thing about this government report is how, well, poorly written it is. This is apparently also the case with the new Levelling Up white paper, which contains an entire section on pre-modern history. And ultimately, the quality of these publications does matter, because they're the basis of government policy, and if they're rushed and uninformative, they'll probably give way to poor policy too. Anyway, let us know what you think in the comments below, and the whole report is linked in the description. One last thing. As I mentioned at the start of this video, this month our Patreon backers are getting access to a bunch of trial live streams as we work on our live output. Now, we will be doing public live streams soon, but these trial ones allow patrons to see our work in progress and feedback before anyone else can. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then sign up to any tier above $5 by clicking the link below. Thanks for your support. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, just like these people, then be sure to back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.